Hey, Matt, thank you so much for taking time to join me on the podcast.
Oh, I'm really excited, Jeremy. Thanks for having me. Or should I say Dr. Couch?
Oh, Dr. Kutz. Come on.
No, Matt, please, Matt.
And Jeremy, of course. Yeah, we were just talking a little offline and catching up because we connected initially at PBA in 2002, which feels like forever ago. There we were, Green Complex for Sports and Recreation. You were
That's
in
right.
training. I was the administrator for the facility, trying to hold the place together and put out fires and all that fun stuff. But yeah, it was just cool to kind of reminisce about that time. And as we were talking, I'm already learning more about you than I knew then. So here I thought, you were all about being a professor and an athletic trainer, and you tell me, no, you were going into the pastorate. So give me
it's
a glimpse of your journey. Yeah.
My wife and I showed up in South Florida and not knowing anything. We had no idea what was going on, but I had just come from, so my background is in athletic training. So I'm an athletic trainer and I work with this whole sports medicine scene. And I've always loved that, still love that. In fact, that's what I was teaching at PBA. That's what I'm teaching now at my current institution at Bowling Green State University is in the athletic training program. But when I started at PBA, it was an interesting thing is what had happened in the process of my journey is I was graduated and working and had a job working in the sports medicine clinic and all that. And a very tragic thing happened is my father, who was a pastor, had a tragic accident and passed away. And so he was now gone and off the scene. And the church that he was pastoring invited me to join the pastoral team there. So, having grown up in the church and having some background, so I felt an obligation to do that, but I also felt like I was supposed to do that. It's one thing to feel an obligation, but I felt like and believed that was part of what the Lord had for me was to be a pastor. So I jumped into that with both feet and hit bottom real quick. I had bricks around my ankles or something because I didn't take too well. And but I loved it. I love the people. I love the church. In fact, I'm back home now. And I'm actually at the same church I was then and all that. So attending there now and all that. So it wasn't anything like that. It's just my skill set was short. So I'm doing that. And in the middle of doing that, 3 years into pastoring, I get an opportunity to go work in the United States Olympic Training Center for a summer internship as an athletic trainer. And that's one of the ways that they staff their teams they staff their teams in the whole facility is through this lottery-based system because everybody wants to work for the Olympic.
Yeah, sure.
The best athletes on the planet are in the United States Olympic team. So anyway, that opportunity came up for me. So I went to the church board at the time and was like, so I've got this opportunity. I've always wanted to do it. You think it's something I can do? So they agreed to give me the summer unpaid leave, of course, give me the time off to do that. So I did that and kind of fell back in love with athletic training. And when I was there, I actually met a guy who was a professor of athletic training in Oklahoma at the time. And he started talking in my ear about, boy, you'd be a good professor. You should think about being a professor. And I'm just like, no way, Jack. And his name literally was Jack, by the way. I'm like, no way, Jack. There is not a chance, and you know where, that I'm going to do this. There's just, I'm not an academic. I'm a pastor full time. I just do athletic training kind of on the side. And I don't like school to begin with. I was an athlete through school, the whole deal. I mean, I didn't want to be in the classroom. I was there to play sports. And he said, well, I don't know about any of that, but I just think you make a good professor. So he convinced me to throw out a few applications. So PBA was one of those schools that I actually sent out one of my resumes to at the time. Didn't even have a curriculum vitae or anything. It was more of a real resume, and to send it out. And Dean Donna Thornton was dean of the where the athletic training program was housed in the College of Education, and she called me back, and the rest, as they say, is history. I ended up, there's quite a long story because then I had to go tell the church that I was leaving to Palm Beach Atlantic and blah, blah, blah. But at any rate, that's how I got to PBA. I showed up on campus and had never an inclination to be a faculty member.
Wow, that is wild. So you said though it wasn't going necessarily great at the church as far
My
as
skill
you
set,
were
yeah.
concerned about your skill set.
I have found, well, leadership has always been a passion of mine. So I've
Yeah.
always been a student of leadership, and I actually have. People don't know this. I never really talk about it, but I actually have 2 doctorates. I have a
Oh,
PhD in religious studies and Pauline theology, as well as global leadership.
wow.
And when I was in pastoring the church that I was at, I started studying towards that and working on
Mhm.
that. And so I've always loved leadership. I've always had that idea in the back of my mind. But what I wasn't good at, and still am not too great at, is the pastoral care side of things.
Mm,
It doesn't my personality doesn't lend itself that way. And I've learned a lot and all those over the years. And certainly,
sure.
scripture tells us to laugh with those who laugh, cry with those who cry, things like that. So I've definitely gotten better. But back then I was in my early 20s, or mid to late 20s actually. And so I just was rough around the edges. I had ideas and I wanted to get it done this way, and you got to do it this way. I just read this great idea in this book on leadership, and so we're going to do it too. And everybody's, do you ever even think about any of that first? Or so I was that
No.
bull in the china shop
Okay.
kind of pass right off the bat.
Okay.
And I love the preaching and the teaching part, and I was good at that, and learned a lot. But I wasn't good at the connection, the people connection piece. And of course, anybody who has any inclination about not just pastoring, but working with people in general, I mean, you've got to do that. And so I found myself being frustrated that I couldn't get us to where we needed to be as an organization, as a church. And that was what was so frustrating for me. So when I say I wasn't good at it, that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I know exactly what you mean, and that is the great challenge of leadership is when you deal with the people side,
For sure.
regardless if it's a business or a church. I'm curious then at that stage, knowing what you said about becoming a faculty member, which was no way. Well, somehow you got to obviously the interview stage and then the offer. What changed your mind?
That's a great question. I think Dr. Thornton kind of tricked me. You know, we're there at Palm Beach Atlantic, which, as you know, is a gorgeous campus right on the Intercoastal Waterway, and blah, blah,
Right.
blah. All that is what it is. And I'm coming from Toledo, Ohio. I mean, it's like there's no water. I mean, Lake Erie, and it's basically a giant mud puddle. And so at any rate, I find myself. They give us my wife. They invited my wife also, so my wife is there.
That was smart. Yeah.
Oh, it was brilliant move.
Yeah.
Brilliant move. And they give us the offer. They give us like coupons to this restaurant, which is right on the Intercoastal.
Yeah.
Sloan's, and we were going to go to Sloan's to get some ice cream afterwards or whatever.
There you go.
And we're walking down the coast. The sun is setting. The yachts are in the Intercoastal. Like the Breakers Resort is across the waterway there. And it's like, well, honey, do you want to work here? You want to move to South Florida and live in all this? Not realizing I couldn't afford remotely to live there, but anyway, so that was the tempting part. But really, it was. I mean, I know now. I didn't know it then. I know now it was God kind of orchestrating things. But I had a frustration about being able to accomplish the things I wanted to accomplish, and I felt like being at Palm Beach Atlantic and getting into this new space would kind of be a restart for me.
Okay.
And being able to restart and maybe have some success in something that maybe I wasn't sure. And I've always been a risk taker anyways. And that's part of my personality. Part of the reason why, he wasn't very successful as a pastor. A lot of good pastors aren't necessarily risk takers. And so that I'm sure had something to do with it. A lot of, at least from what I've seen in many, and that this is not true across the board, but a lot of times pastors need to be stable and predictable. Instead, they're more of they tend to bend that way. I wasn't that way, where I felt like at PBA, I was being tasked to start a brand new program.
Okay.
I did not have an athletic training program at the time. So it was to create something brand new, help with that. So there was a lot of opportunity like that. Plus I was really intrigued by the idea of teaching. I had developed a style as a pastor, and I wanted to see if I could extend that, because that's one of the things that I did get a lot of positive feedback from the church that I was at, was my my preaching and teaching, as it were. So I wanted to see maybe I had something there that I didn't know was there. So there was a couple different things that kind of drove me to take it. But it was really, hey, honey, let's do this crazy wild thing and just see what happens. Oh, and I will say this, which is important, is that the church that I was a part of, when I did talk to them about it, they really made it easy for me because they didn't want to see me go. So they did say, you know what, Matt, we will give you 1 year to try this. And if you don't like it, you can come back and resume your post in a year from now. So I did have that out. So I had a safety net behind me to where they were willing to let me go experiment with this thing. And if I decided it was too much or I couldn't do it, they were going to let me come back and take on an associate pastor role. So that would have been, so I had that. And had that not been the case, probably a different decision would have been made.
Really? Interesting. That's really unusual, but that's really kind of them to give you that option. But obviously you stayed, and I mean, here we are 17 years later, you're still a professor and journeyed on obviously to a couple other schools and now Bowling Green. So what was it like in that first year, those first couple of years? Because again, you're going in like saying, hey, I do not want to be a professor. So obviously you found your rhythm. Maybe it was in the style, the teaching. Was there some things that just really clicked for you?
There was. And I remember after like the first couple of weeks coming home and being excited and talking to my wife, I was like, I think I actually said at one point, honey, I think I found my people. It was, I didn't even know that was an opportunity or something that was available. Because I had always, like I said, grown up in the church, grown up as a pastor's kid. So I'd always known one way to teach, one way to present. And when I was started to take some basic pedagogy classes and watch other faculty, and I got a faculty mentor and things like that, I realized, oh, you know what? There are other ways to skin a cat, as it were. Sure. And that's when I started really, really liking, you know what? You can be person you want to be in the classroom, but you also have the mentoring aspect. I'm mentoring people who are younger than me, and the church, I was young, so a lot of people I was mentoring, working with, were older than me, so they were very skeptical to begin with, where this was the exact opposite. Now the students actually, they didn't know what they didn't know, so whatever I said had to be right.
You were the authority. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and so that obviously had a factor in that as well. But I just remember loving it. I mean, I remember absolutely like loving it, not ever, and being so surprised that it never even occurred to me or came up anywhere that I could be a faculty member.
Wow, that is really remarkable. It wasn't even on the radar screen for you, and here. Never. This opportunity presents itself.
Miles away. It reminds me of that scripture where in the Bible it talks about, I know the thoughts I have, the thoughts the Lord has for us, hope in the future, in Jeremiah 29:11. Then the other part where, that we have, I forget the exact reference right now, so I apologize, but it's where the Lord tells us he gives us beyond what we can even ask or think.
Yeah.
And that's really thing is, because when you think about that, we think about this, oh, I can imagine, and we think it's way more than we can imagine. Like if I'm imagining $1 million and God's thinking $1 billion, that's not what that means at all. What that means is I have something prepared for you that hasn't even entered your mind. This is more than you can ask or think. If you can ask it, you've thought it. But this is more than you can ask or think. So this is something that hasn't even occurred to you. And I found myself in a situation realizing, I said it, I was at a workshop, actually a large workshop just a couple of weeks ago. And I said to the audience, I said to them, I'm doing everything I've always wanted to do, but nothing I've ever imagined I'd be doing.
Wow.
And they said that. They actually, like, you could feel the air go out of the room. Yeah. They're like, say that again.
Say it again. Yeah.
Like, say that again. And I said, I'm doing everything I've always wanted to do, but I'm not doing anything I ever imagined I'd be doing. And that's just how the Lord is. And I think that's how, scripture also tells us in James that a righteous man's steps are ordered by the Lord. And I'm not implying that, I'm a super righteous man or anything, but I do believe I'm trying. And I do believe the Lord is ordering us. So there are things that come up that are, I'm just surprised that even I'm there and in the room and able to do it.
Oh, wow. That's just a great perspective on that and a great story. And so in the midst of that, there's the athletic training background where you had that, and you go into the pastorate, become a professor teaching athletic training, but there's also a passion for leadership.
Right.
And then you continue your studies and get your doctorate in leadership. So where was that passion kindled originally?
So that is another thing. And again, I can blame Dr. Thornton for that as well, because, after my first year at PBA, I'm doing my annual performance review and sitting with her, and she's like, okay, Matt, you're doing great. And we really love it, and your ideas, and you've got great student evaluations, and your colleagues like, blah. But you're only at an instructor level. And at the time, my wife was now pregnant. I'm building a family, all this kind of stuff. So if you want to get raises and get promoted and get, they didn't have tenure there, but they had like multiple year contracts and things. And they're like, if you want that, and you want to get promoted, you're going to have to get a terminal degree in something. I only had my master's degree at the time. And so she's like, you're going to need to get a doctorate. And I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? So I was like, I didn't want, again, I just go back. I don't want to do school. And so all right. So she finally, it was either that or, go pump gas on the weekends to make me kind of thing.
Right.
So we started looking around. Me, my wife and I started looking around at different universities in the area. And we ultimately settled on a PhD in global leadership. And for two reasons. One, and truly because I love leadership, and it was really exciting for me. The other reason, which tipped the scales in that direction, was the fact that it was a program designed for people like me who had a day job.
Yeah.
So it was convenient. Whereas my other alternative would have been to get a degree in a formal lab and exercise physiology or something like that. I would have had to quit work and go be a doctoral GA somewhere. And so that was the other reason, but it really was because I love leadership. So I picked that program, and my first day of class in my first PhD class on change management, it was like right up my alley. I just like, again, oh my gosh, I didn't even know people studied this stuff to this level and this degree.
Wow.
My experience with leadership up to that point has always just been John Maxwell books and things like that, which are great.
Sure.
But I didn't even know there was an academic, scholarly, and there's actually research and tons of literature on this that I was like, wow. I knew what my books about Pauline leadership said, and my books about John Maxwell, but I didn't know this was that thing. So I just, again, found a whole nother thing that I didn't even know was there.
Just opened a new world for you, it sounds like.
Whole new world.
Yeah. So obviously you go through, get the degree, continue on then to a new school, I think, or you said around 06 maybe or so, to Texas. And then you started really putting the leadership into practice, right? Now
and that's where, I'd been able to use it and begin to practice it in the different programs and things. And then in 06, I got an opportunity to go back to Texas State, which was that Jack I mentioned earlier, the guy who got me in the first place. He had now moved to Texas State. We had become friends. His whole ulterior motive this whole time, he never told me, was, I want to work with you. So the day I finished my PhD, he called me and said, so I've been waiting for you to finish. I got this job opportunity for you in Texas if you want to come. And so we did that. But what had happened, and again, another twist in the road that I did not foresee, was the research thing.
Yeah.
At PBA, as you know, it's a teaching intensive institution. So, we're encouraged to do research as faculty and all that, but it's certainly not what makes or breaks your career there.
Yeah.
Whereas at Texas State, research is significantly more important.
Yeah.
And, so now I had to publish. I had to start writing some things. And so this is where contextual intelligence comes in and all this. And I'm now needing to publish some research. So I went back to my dissertation from my university and looked at the leadership behaviors of athletic trainers and leadership behaviors of healthcare professionals. And I had several key findings in that dissertation that were just novel. Just neat enough to get my degree,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
a good dissertation, they say, is a done dissertation.
Exactly. 100%. Yep.
But I had a few kind of unique findings in there. So I kind of spun them off into articles, manuscripts.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I published them, I wrote them out. And one of the areas that I had is I was able to, so my research is about what are the leadership behaviors that a person uses when they're under duress or when their environment changes, when their context shifts. Because, there's tons on leadership competencies, leadership capabilities, different theories of leadership, but they're pretty idiosyncratic to, well, this is the retail, this is government, this is politics, all whatever industry you're in, there's leadership behaviors and leadership competencies for different industries. And we know that, and that's been well established. What I was interested in is not what are the skills you need for a certain industry, but I wanted to know what are the skills you use regardless of industry. So when you move between contexts, when you shift industries, what skills do you use? And I was using my own life as a case study. So I had started off in a clinical environment, working in a clinical setting in physical therapy and athletic training programs. Then I found myself pastoring in this church. Then I find myself now as a program director at a university, 3 completely different spaces, completely different industries. And I knew that I had some common thread in there. I didn't relearn everything in each new phase. I had to relearn a lot of things in each new phase, but there were certain things that I kept with me regardless of all 3 phases. And I wondered if that was true of other people in environments when they switch. So that's what I did my dissertation on. And I was able to identify 48 different behavioral attributes associated with leadership that people use regardless of context, regardless of the situation, that helps them transition between novel times. So that's where that came from. And so I wrote my very first paper on that. I called that, there was, at any rate, I don't know if you want to know about the research per se, but of those 48, there were 12 behaviors that clustered together as a group that needed to be kept together. I called that cluster of 12 behaviors contextual intelligence. And so I wrote my first paper on contextual intelligence, defined what it was, gave a theoretical framework for it, and then identified these are the 12 behaviors from my research on contextual intelligence. Wrote it, got it published, and never thought about it again because I went back to what I really was interested in, and that's ankle and knee injuries, sports medicine, athletic training stuff, what I was getting paid to do.
Right.
Kind of thing. And so I wrote that paper and walked away from it and didn't think about it again until 3 years later, Jeremy.
Wow.
3 years later, I'm at a new institution now. I'm in Bowling Green, Ohio, Bowling Green State University. I'm sitting in my office, just grading papers or something. I don't even know what I'm doing, checking emails, whatever. The phone rings, and I answer the phone, and it's a Fortune 50 company. I won't say who.
Wow.
16, any rate, huge. I mean, I guarantee you every household in America has products in their house. From this company anyway. So he's got me on the phone. He goes, "Is this Dr. Kutz?" And I'm like, "Yes." They're like, so I read a paper you wrote a few years ago on contextual intelligence. What can you tell me about it? And I had to think for a minute. I took me off guard. So I'm like, that's not even.
You read it?
Yeah, because that's what I said. I said, who actually reads that stuff? I mean, academic journal for crying out loud. And here this is an applied corporation.
Yeah.
So at any rate, he ends up telling me that, listen, we have Disney comes to us for their leadership training. I mean, we're Disney's coach, Wow. I'm in charge. The division that I'm in charge of within the global company is a $16 billion division within the larger corporation.
Wow.
And he said, so I'm serious when I say everything that's leadership we get. I read your article on leadership and it floored me. He goes, "It's the best thing I've read on leadership. I think you've got something here that no one else has identified. Wow. I think it's going to," he said, this is the direct quote he used. He said, "I think it's going to change the way the world does leadership." And I'm like, that's what I said. "Oh man, you got the wrong guy here." So, but at any rate, it turns out, again, long story, they ended up hiring me. And so I went down to their corporate headquarters or global headquarters and did my little song and dance and was scared to death. There's a whole hilarious story associated with that, but was scared to death. And they ended up loving it. I mean, they ended up loving it, and they like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. You need to go back and get an attorney. You need to get a intellectual property, copyrights, patent, because this is what we're going to do. You got to figure out a way to measure it. You have a book. I had none of that, nothing. I was just like, I went down with a slide deck of 12 slides, and
Oh my gosh.
a couple Bible stories, because my whole premise is based off of the sons of Issachar, who had knowledge of the times and knew what Israel ought to do. And that's basically the premise of contextual intelligence. It's understanding the times and then knowing what to do. Because it's one thing to understand the times, which is the easy part. Most people can discern this is good, this is bad, what's going on, I should be here, I shouldn't be here, things like that. That's the easy part. The hard part is once you make that determination, what do I do now? What's the intelligent thing? So that's where even contextual intelligence came from. It's knowing the context and then intelligently responding in whatever context you're in. And that came to me when I was doing my dissertation, teaching the Sunday school class on the sons of Issachar at the same time down there at PBA.
So you developed the idea from that Bible story?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Did you share the Bible stories at this presentation?
I did. I didn't know what else to do, dude. I was so scared and so nervous.
Well, I was going to ask you how you went from nobody knows about this to I'm at a Fortune 50 company giving a presentation. I mean, were you?
Oh, I was literally scared to death. I mean, I was shaking. I mean, so the director of the corporate university was there as well in the room with us. And so I'm in the executive C-suite. I mean, this is Jeremy. I'm not kidding you. I mean, I'm so out of my league.
Yeah.
I mean, this is cloak and dagger. I mean, so it's like retinal eye scans.
Yeah.
You get back to the C-suite room. You're back there. You're in this corporate boardroom, which, I mean, the chair I was sitting on cost more than my house. All right. I mean, kind of a thing. I'm not kidding you. I'm in the executive parking garage next to Bentleys and Rolls Royces, and I'm in a 1996 Honda Accord with my mirror zip tied on, literally. Kind of, it's like I'm in a clunker car. I mean,
it is awesome.
It's the most horrible thing ever. I'm scared to death.
Oh my God.
I'm physically shaking. I'm standing in front of this team, this executive team, and just tell them what I think it is. Here's what contextual intelligence is. It's based on this Bible story. I believe people are like this. And basically I just reiterated to them what I learned as a pastor, that, I didn't have the people skills. I was reiterating, this is how people are in real life. And I think I found something that kind of illustrates some of that. And so I'm 15 minutes into this talk. The guy, the director of P&G University, raises his hand. I'm like, oh gosh, here it starts.
Here it comes.
Yep. So he's like, young man. He's like, he goes, how did he say it? Because he's like, calm down.
Oh,
because I was
he
like,
could tell.
Nervous. And he could tell.
Yeah.
Calm down. You're doing great. He goes, listen, I've heard everything there is to hear about leadership. This is the best stuff I've ever heard.
Wow.
Sit down. He goes, sit down. Go, or actually he said, go get some food. They had this buffet spread behind me that just like,
go get some food.
Go get some food, get a drink, come over here, sit down at the table, and let's just talk about this, because I'm convinced this is what we need to do here at our company, and we're just let's just talk about it. So for the next 4 hours, we sat at this executive roundtable, them Q&A and questioning and my ideas, spitballing back and forth over what I think contextual intelligence is, how the research worked out, what it means, what it looks like, how we could operationalize it, these kinds of things. And from that meeting, and then after that meeting, of course, they loved it and everything was great. And I was wiping my brow and walking me back out to my car, thinking, oh God, what do I do? I don't want to walk to my car because, it's literally zip tied on. You can't get in my passenger side door because my handle on the inside is broken off.
Oh, this is classic.
I'm like, should I go stand by one of these other cars?
Yes.
Wait for him to leave and then just hope I'm not standing by his car. I'm going to end up picking the car that's his car. And he's going to be like, what are you doing? So I'm just like, it was so embarrassing.
Oh.
But walking me out, he says to me, you know, and here's where I knew, this is when I knew I had something, because this is a powerful endorsement and testimony and there's two things that was said at that moment that made me think, you know, maybe I have something that I didn't know I had he said to me, he goes, all this stuff you said was really good and really well. But what struck me most is about an hour into your talk, I realized that if I had known this, and this is a direct quote, I'm not exaggerating. He said, if I had known this 7 years ago, I wouldn't be divorced right now. You know, and I was like, and I did the same thing. I was like, whoa, really? I said, that's quite an endorsement there, because he says, I think you've really hit something and found something that people, he called it, you know, we've always talked about the it factor. Because I think you found the it factor that everyone is talking about, you know, this contextual intelligence piece. And so I was greatly humbled by that and honored by that. And then he says to me, he goes, so here's what we do here at our company. You know, we don't hire consultants. He goes, I'm sorry to tell you. He goes, we don't hire consultants. He goes, when we bring somebody in, we bring in Peter Drucker, we bring in Warren Bennis, we bring in Stephen Covey. And that's what words he said. He used those three. He goes, Warren Bennis, Stephen Covey, Peter Drucker, and sticks out his hand and it says, and Matt Kutz. And I was like, whoa. You know, I said, he even asked me, because he could tell, he goes, you realize the company I just put you in, don't you? I said, yes, sir, I very much do. And so that's kind of what we did. And it went from there. And they really encouraged me at that point to get an attorney, get this stuff copyrighted, get this stuff patented. He goes, because we're moving forward with it. He goes, you can either benefit from it or not. So he said, we'll give you 2 weeks. And we're moving forward with it. We hear back from you, great. If not, then we're moving. So I went back, and that evening I called an attorney.
I bet.
And I believed him. That's the other thing. I'm just gullible enough sometimes to believe him. And I believed him. And so I did all that, and it worked out really well. I developed an instrument to assess my 12 behaviors. I put the very first draft together of my book, Contextual Intelligence. I've got the how 3D thinking can help resolve complexity, uncertainty, and ambiguity is the title of my book. That book went on in 2013, and a few years later, to be honored as Leadership Book of the Year for innovation and cutting edge perspective. Man. And it's gone on. I got a Fulbright scholarship out of the deal, visiting research fellowship in Australia, and I lived in Rwanda, and it's just now opening a tremendous amount of opportunities for me of me going around talking to people about contextual intelligence and how important it is to use hindsight, insight, and foresight, which is the bottom takeaway. How hindsight, insight, and foresight need to be used in our decision-making leadership behaviors, or as our toolbox. And most of us have a toolbox that has hindsight in it. And we talk about using the past and our experiences to inform our decisions, which is important. And I would never say we shouldn't do that. But the most contextually intelligent people among us actually use what I call 3D thinking. That is, they use their hindsight, they use their insight, which is the present, and they use their foresight, which is the future. So it's basically understanding and using the 3 dimensions of time in your decision-making process, and not just one dimension. Most of us use hindsight. Few of us use foresight, and a lot of us, the visionaries and those who are always out front thinking about what if, and we could do that. And that's important too. But without hindsight, foresight is worthless. Without foresight, hindsight is worthless. So when you have hindsight and foresight working together, it creates insight. And here's my thing is most people try to come to a place of insight by just using hindsight or just using foresight. My tenet is that you cannot come to a place. It is impossible. It physically cannot happen where you cannot come to a moment of insight. I mean, in other words, making a decision that's important or intelligent for right now in the context you're in, without an accurate, and that's the caveat, an accurate understanding of hindsight. So that's hindsight that's not biased by hindsight bias, which all hindsight is. So that means we can't do it alone. We have to have input from other people, which is why Solomon tells us in the Proverbs, there's wisdom in a multitude of counsel. And because we never see hindsight accurately. So,
Mm.
but then in addition to that, we also have to have foresight. So we've got to have the whole idea of what Paul talks about. I forget those things that are behind me, and I press on towards the high mark of the call. And and actually, I think it's a New Living Translation says, I reach into my future. And that's really important to understand is we can't have moments of insight or moments of clarity in any issue in our life, personal, private, relationally, all the hats that we wear, unless or until we have an accurate understanding of hindsight and a clear ability to articulate our foresight, the future. When we have both those, then it becomes more clear to me what I can do right here, right now. And that's where that's the crux of what leadership ultimately comes down to for me in this area. So,
wow, there's so much there.
And we're out of time. So buy the book.
We're just getting started. I'm still blown away by the story. I want to talk more about contextual intelligence and maybe, an example or two. I mean, you just laid it out really well. And on your website, which I'll link to, you've got the whole model there, and the 12 different aspects of the model. But I'm just thinking back to that story, and what is the lesson in that, do you think? I mean, when you look back on that, do you just kind of go again, like, what just happened? I mean, a guy read a paper.
Right.
Which, again, a non-academic person usually doesn't read.
There's more to that. So a guy read a paper. So because I asked the same question, Jeremy. I'm like, first of all, how do you find this paper? Because it's in an academic healthcare journal.
Right.
And, kind of thing. So how does he even find it in the first place? So I asked him that question because I'm mystified as you are by it. And so this is the story he tells me. He goes, I'm glad you asked, because here's what happened. Our CEO was winning Stanford University Business School Man of the Year. So we're out at Stanford University, the whole executive board, all that, and our CEO is winning Man of the Year. So it's this big black tie gala event. So we're out there. Warren Bennis is emceeing the whole event.
Oh my gosh.
So Warren Bennis now it's time to issue the award.
Yeah.
So he's introducing our CEO. He gets called up, and during his introduction, in his comments of his introduction, he says the reason why this man is such a successful CEO is because he's contextually intelligent. And he goes, I had never heard that term before. So I literally got out a pen and wrote it on my napkin, put it in my pocket. And after the evening was over, after the gala and the event was over, I went back to my hotel room and Googled contextual intelligence, and your article was the top first one on the list. So I downloaded it, read it, and I'm like, that's it. I got to talk to this guy. So that's how that happened.
That is amazing.
I know.
Seriously, doesn't that blow your mind a little?
A lot.
A lot.
It blows my mind a lot. It's only God can do something like it. It's supernatural.
It is. Yeah. Well, I mean, just the whole story, and I can only imagine the trepidation again of going into an environment like that. Now it is, I mean, the intimidation factor just had to be off the charts. And so for you to even lean into that, though, as they say, lean into the pain, get out of your comfort zone and just go with it. It says a lot, because sometimes we cower in the face of fear. And
I could have easily said no for a lot of different reasons too. And you're right. And I guess some of that goes back to, obviously, I believe God was orchestrating a lot of that, or all of that. But but also, I mentioned earlier in our talk that I'm kind of wired to be a risk taker anyway. So for me, it was all just a game. You know what? I take that. What could happen? So they think I'm an idiot. I'm never going to see these people again.
Right.
And that's kind of the approach I've taken. And it's
again, no, it's great. And I think we do overthink those things sometimes, try to impress people, look good. But hey, what did you have to lose, really?
Exactly.
It's, you didn't even, have that opportunity before that guy called, and here just, drop in your laps, like, hey, why not? Why not go see what might come of this? And obviously that's led, like you said, to so many other
Right.
great opportunities. You're on your website, lots of organizations. It looks like you've had the opportunity to
Yeah, and they
speak
even told me,
to.
they even said, so listen, once people find out that you've been um, hired by
Yeah.
this company, he goes, it's gonna everybody's gonna know. He goes, it's gonna come out of the woodwork, and you're gonna start. People will start calling you. It just does works. So I have had every like it's every other faculty and other researchers are like, dude, you're living the crazy fantasy dream that we all dream about would happen. I mean, I really haven't had to do much work. It's just
Yeah.
people just like, oh, well, you hired them, well, we want them too. Oh, you hired them, we want them too. Kind of a thing. And I'm it's kind of weird to say, but most of my clients have been Fortune 500 clients, if not almost
Wow.
all of them, or multinational companies at
Sure.
least.
Yeah.
So
What a
and it's
blessing.
been because of that very first client of mine is a big name, and people are like, well, shoot, I mean,
Yeah.
so, and they told me that would happen, and they were right.
They
They're
were
like,
right.
he asked me as I'm walking out to you, so do you have a website? I'm like, no, a website. I mean, why would I have a website?
What would that be
I
for?
mean, I'm a knucklehead,
Yeah.
They're like, listen, you're going to want to get a website.
Yeah.
I'm like,
You're
okay.
gonna want to get on that. Yeah. Wow. But look, you went and wrote. You said, "Hey, I wrote this paper. I put it out there." A lot of times, I think we're afraid to, go back to kind of fear of and what will people think of putting our content or ideas out there. And
Yep.
we're concerned about how they'll be viewed. But hey, you were diligent. You did the work and put it out there, not expecting anything, and then
Yeah, and
look what came of it.
one of the things that my parents have always taught me that I think is important in this is it's whatever your hand finds. Scripture also says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might.
Yeah.
And again, I was taught that, and I'm just gullible enough to believe that. And so that was also a big motivating piece, and even in everything that I do is, if I'm
Yeah.
going to do this, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So and again, that goes to my personality, but I'm all in. So, I mean, what
Yeah.
the heck? What have I got to lose? My reputation? I mean, what reputation do I have? I'm a knucklehead. So just, let's just have fun with it and see what can happen, and let's roll the dice, as it were. But
Yeah.
but again, I believe, like I said earlier, a righteous man's steps are ordered by the Lord, and so I'm just
Yeah.
doing the best I can with what I know,
Mm.
and I believe the Lord honors that.
No, that's great. That's a great lesson. Talk a little bit more about then the model, maybe, and you described it, but could you provide any type of an example, maybe,
Yeah,
just
sure.
so
So
we could get our arms around it and see how it would apply, whether it's personally or maybe in a leadership scenario.
right. So one of the things that I think is important to understand is the model has three important components to it. One we've already talked about. Those are the 12 behaviors.
Mhm.
And if you would take the CI profile, it measures the frequency in which you practice those 12 behaviors. So we
Okay.
can actually kind of diagnose how contextually intelligent you are based on how frequently you practice those 12 behaviors.
Okay.
So that's one part. But then in order to even get to the place of practicing those 12 behaviors, you've got to change the way you think. Let me say it this way. You have to think a certain way.
Okay.
So one of the ways, and that's where the 3D thinking model comes in. So you've got to understand hindsight, insight, and foresight, past, present, and future. That has to work itself into your deliberation process, and it
Okay.
has to be deliberate and intentional. Now, you can't just say, I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, because everybody hears it like, oh, I can do that, and
Yeah.
you can, but it takes time. And so what I've been able to also develop and kind of massage out is there are other frames of mind that you can have and adopt that help with that. So the three frames of mind are understanding what complexity truly is, understanding what synchronicity truly is, and understanding what tacit knowledge truly is. And this is the academic piece, and this is where a lot of people can really get excited about it because there's literature, there's research,
Sure.
there's big stuff. So I typically start somebody on their contextual intelligence journey with just asking them, do you think life is complex or do you think life is complicated? Because that is a dramatic difference. And so I burst their bubble right away because 9 out of 10 people say life is complicated. And I'm like, well, I hate to burst your bubble, or actually I don't hate to burst your bubble. I can't wait to burst your bubble, but life is not complicated. Life is not complicated at all.
Yeah.
It's actually quite simple. What
Mm.
you mean to say is life is complex.
Mm.
And when you understand truly what it means to be complex and what it doesn't mean to not be complicated, it's life changing, it's earth altering. Because
Mm.
think of it this way:
Interesting.
in a complicated world, there's an answer and a solution for everything. It's just a matter of finding it. In a complicated world, it's very Newtonian. In other words, it's very mechanistic. Things are ordered, things are structured, things are predictable. You can know everything in a complicated world. It's just getting to the bottom of the bag, so to speak. And we use a common metaphor for a complicated system is a machine. And we'll even say things like we're a well-oiled machine, or we're firing on all cylinders, and which are really kind of silly metaphors, because we're not a machine at all. Organizations are organic. Organizations are not mechanistic. And we develop even policy and procedures, which are very mechanistic. We develop organizational charts, which with hierarchies that are very mechanistic, and we're building a mechanistic solution or a mechanistic system for a complex one, and they don't mix. And that's why organizations have the problems that they have, and why leaders within organizations have the problem that they have, because they're most likely trying to apply complicated techniques in a complex system, and it doesn't work. So the metaphor for a complex system would be a cake, for example.
Okay.
So think about the two. Now, in both situations, what's similar is there's both multiple ingredients or multiple parts. So in a machine or in an engine, let's use an engine as our machine, there are spark plugs and gaskets and all this widgets and gears and all that go in, and you create this machine. And if that machine is dysfunctional or breaks in any way, it's very, so you go in and you remove the broken piece, the spark plug, you take out the spark plug, you take out the old oil, everything else stays the way it is. It's not affected by the spark plug being removed, and you put a new spark plug in, and everything fires and works as usual. That's a complicated machine. We think life works that way, organizations and relationships work that way, but they don't. It's more like cake. It's more like it's a complex system. So the similarity, again, is like a machine, there's multiple parts. Well, with a cake, there's multiple ingredients. There's butter, there's eggs, there's milk, there's flour, there's vanilla, there's sugar, all of that goes in it. The major difference, however, is once it's in there and I've mixed it up, I get something brand new. I get batter. See, in the machine part, the spark plug stays the spark plug, the gasket stays the gasket. It never becomes part of the whole. It's always an individual identity. In a complex system, the cake, the eggs, for example, if I needed the good spark plug back for my lawnmower, I could take it out and use it in my lawnmower.
Right.
But if I needed the eggs back from the cake for breakfast tomorrow morning, I'm not getting the eggs back. The eggs have become integrated into the batter, and it can't be removed. See, and we treat life like it's a machine, but it's really like cake. So we try to solve problems in our life. Well, hey, I'm unhappy. I don't like my life, and blah, blah. So what do I need a new job. So I quit my job and get a new job. Guess what? I'm still unhappy. I need a new wife. I get a divorce and I get remarried, and I'm still unhappy because I'm trying to solve a complex problem with complicated techniques. I isolate the problem. I quarantine the problem. I try to fire an organization, do the same thing. Well, if this isn't working right in your company, well, find who's responsible for it and fire them.
Yep.
And you do that, and it doesn't fix the problem. Your customer service ratings are still low. Your patient satisfaction scores are still low. Well, you didn't fire the right person, fire somebody else. And we keep trying these complicated, when really, no, it's a systemic problem. It's a complexity piece. You're not training them right, or something else. And that's really what contextual intelligence helps us do. So when we understand the difference between complexity and complication, first, that's a big mind blower.
Yeah.
You got to go back and think about, oh my goodness, I really do think and act as if the world is complicated, and it's not. So that takes some time to undo. But once you undo that and become comfortable with the fact that complexity is simple and good and not bad, which ties into chaos. So I've got a whole thing on chaos, and we talk about chaos being bad. Listen, chaos is not bad. And this is one of the things that I say a lot, and I get tweeted on a lot, is chaos is the package that your potential arrives in. And I think it's really important that we understand chaos the way scientists understand chaos.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an unrecognized pattern. And
Mm.
we think because we don't know what's going on that it's haphazard or unpredictable, and it's really not. Chaotic patterns are actually very organized when you step back from them and see it in hindsight. And so that's why accurate hindsight is so important in this process.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that and just
Wow.
say, when you understand complexity, that it's good, that it actually feeds into the value of chaos, then what that does for you is that immediately sets you up for understanding foresight. Complexity and foresight are correlated constructs. So when I understand complexity, now I can understand foresight. And when I understand foresight, it takes us back to the 12 behaviors. It just conveniently works out that of the 12 behaviors, 4 of them factor into each one of these areas. So there are 4 foresight behaviors of a contextually intelligent person, 4 insight behaviors, and 4 hindsight behaviors. So by starting with complexity, I can now work myself in understanding what foresight is and being able to articulate my future better. Because think about how that affects problem solving. If problem solving in a complicated way is no longer on the table, I have to problem solve in a completely new way. So now I've got to reassess and reevaluate everything that I thought I knew about problem solving. You end up using double loop learning instead of single loop learning, for example, which again facilitates foresight, which again then directly ties to those 4 contextually intelligent foresight behaviors. And we do the same thing for hindsight and insight. And I won't waste your time with all the other.
Oh no, it's great.
It's a lot of fun, and that's what I actually present this in it's a full day workshop, and we unpack all this stuff, and we have a blast. People typically walk away with wow, I've never thought of that before.
Really? Well, that's exciting for you. I mean, when you present something and you've got an idea and people, their eyes are really kind of open, that's always a great feeling, just because you see that they're getting it.
Right.
So then you've got the model, you've got the profile. Let's say they go through, they do this profile, they're buying into this. How do they then work to get better? Do what like you said earlier, somebody, I can start doing that. It's like, well, it's not that easy. What steps do you take to just be more contextually intelligent?
So yeah, a couple things is there's obviously services, and you can go to my website and you can get the coaching, you can get the book, and there's questions and stuff like that, but that's really not the thing. I mean, what it really was what I found is the best thing to do is this is just a journey of personal discovery. And one of the things that I have done is as I begin to unpack this stuff myself and have the insight, these moments is taking back and tacit knowledge, for example, is what we know to be true, but have no idea why we know it's true. You've got to go back and do that journey. You've got to take that journey. So what I do is I start taking a real intentional inventory of why do I think that about this? What experience, to the point where I ask myself and other people who know me well, who will tell me the truth, what experiences have I had in my life that bias me to new ideas and new things? I mean, and that is my favorite, and that is in the book. That question is in the book, and that's my favorite question to ask people, is because they're like, I don't know. Well, because you can't just answer that at a dinner table conversation. That requires thought. It requires a personal inventory of your history and your past, and I actually did a TED talk on this not too long ago, and I told the story behind this exact moment that this happened to me when I first realized, boy, I'm being asked this one thing. Where does this bias come from? And it comes back to an experience I had when I was 12 years old with my dad. That I call it's the Vulcan death grip story, and that's the title of the TED talk, is how the Vulcan death grip changes everything.
Wow.
And but that's what that is. But all of us have these watershed moments, and now I carry around a notebook that are just full of what I call watershed moments in Matt Kutz's life. Experiences that I don't automatically always remember, but until something happens, and then I have a certain memory about something, I'm diligent to write that down because I know that was a formative experience. And most people do not think about their formative experiences. And you can't truly practice leadership the way it's meant to be practiced. And you can't truly inspire the people around you the way they want to be inspired until you know why you think what you think.
Yeah.
Why you believe what you believe.
Mm.
And the way to do that is to ask yourself these probing questions that take time. Again, you can't do this on a weekend retreat.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of us doing that kind of stuff, and I wouldn't say not to do that.
Yeah.
But it needs to not just be a once a year weekend retreat where I go and find myself and I have these moments. You need to do that too. But in addition to that, this has to become a lifestyle of always assessing what experiences have I had that bias me to new ideas. And so you ask yourself those types of questions, and so that's where I would start. So when I said it's a very introspective personal journey, you start there. The other thing you wrestle with is a beautiful thing about the scale, the model, the way I've developed it is if you're a big picture thinker like I am, and I also do a lot of stuff with the DISC personality profiles and things. So I'm a high D, high I personality. Is I can think big picture out there. And so I'm really good at wrestling with the notions of complexity versus complication. I can do that. And I can start there and think, oh, I'm taking a complicated approach to this problem. And that does, by the way, I want to be quick to say, it doesn't always mean that every problem is complex. Most are, but there are certainly complicated things that you need to know. And you've got to know which is which too. So, I mean, certainly I gave this talk to a group of engineers one time, and, don't tell them that Newtonian physics isn't the way to go because, they depend on that. I mean, you need to know that you can't build a bridge or build the building if you're not depending on the proper laws of physics. So there's both. There's a balance there. So you can start big picture like that and wrestle with those, or for someone else with a different personality type, they can approach it from the foundational behavior level. So being future-minded, for example, is one of the behaviors within the foresight, CI behaviors within the foresight category. So we can start working on being future-minded and work small up to the big picture idea, or we can start at the big picture idea and work ourselves down, because somebody might say, well, I want to be more contextually intelligent, and I don't understand how I can understand complexity and complication any different than I already do. Then I would say, well, let's start with you then with understanding the 4 behaviors and future-minded. Somebody else would be like, I can't even get to that yet. That's too far out there. Let's start here. So you can start on either end of the spectrum and work yourself towards contextual intelligence.
Oh, it's a great model, and there's obviously a ton there. You've got all kinds of research on your website, so we're certainly linked to that for people to delve in a little bit deeper. You've got the profile, and I love what you said about the self-discovery process and the journaling, and I've found that to be such a great habit to form, to capture what this journey and to capture those moments, because a lot of times we don't take inventory of that, and we don't recognize the impact that they have. Even like you said, from age 12
are the simplest things, like you're saying. I mean, it's a very simple thing that has a traumatic, not traumatic, maybe traumatic too,
maybe traumatic,
traumatic impact. And that's one of the things that leaders, they want ROI, they want, return on investment, they want a big bang for their buck, so to speak. And I get that, but sometimes the biggest bang for your buck are the smallest things, which, by the way, is a fundamental principle of a complex system. The butterfly effect. These tiny little butterfly wings flapping over here has a tremendous impact somewhere else down the road. And that's exactly what we're talking about. They're looking for this huge change I need to make to be a better leader. And really just think about why you think about what you're thinking, And it's a small little thing. Journal 5 minutes a day, 3 minutes a day, and think about why you'll see a huge impact from that.
Absolutely.
Because life is complex, not complicated.
Not complicated. Yeah. Love that cake engine analogy. I'll remember that. That's good. So what's on the horizon for you? I mean, you've got on your website, the books you've written, you've got all the research. Are you taking this to, a next phase? What do you have planned coming up for 2020?
Well, we're just gonna play it by ear. I mean, I've definitely got a lot of opportunities. So I've
Yeah,
been,
that's great.
the last 6 weeks, I've been traveling somewhere every six
Yeah.
weeks,
Wow.
and I'm as busy as I want to be. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun, and
Yeah.
I love it. I get to travel quite a bit, and like I said, it's taken me. I've got a real big international audience, so it's actually the book is translated into Korean
Wow.
and other places. So I've got going to Australia here in a couple in January to do some stuff there, and I work with quite a few companies here in the United States, and a lot of work, primarily workshops. I just don't have the time right now
Right.
to coach and mentor people like
Sure.
I did at the beginning. So now it's taking on the form of workshops. So I do a
Yeah.
lot of workshops for organizations, and then we're looking into the idea of um, developing a contextual intelligence certification
Mm.
so that HR people, training and development people can take the certification, can take the course and get certified as a contextual intelligence consultant, and then administer my profile and do
Mm.
the trainings and workshops and things like that. So we're looking into that and seeing if that's going to, if it's feasible or not.
Yeah. That's exciting. It's
Yeah,
fun.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, it's great to see your work coming together, and just to have the opportunities, and to go out and help people. I mean, at the end of the day, it's what you're doing. You're helping leaders and organizations, teams, individuals, and that's what it's all about. So we're running out of time here. I did want to ask you a little bit just on the disciplines front. You talked about the journaling and some of the things you try to work on. I'm always curious when I talk with someone like yourself, who's, you're a professor, you're doing all this work and speaking and traveling. How do you work in a rhythm of writing? Because obviously you're producing
Mm-hmm.
a lot of content, and you've got other books we haven't even mentioned. Where does that discipline come into play for you? And is that a daily thing, a weekly thing? What do you do there?
It starts with having a very supportive wife.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my wife is
Yeah.
out of this world supportive and helps me with that. But I'm also at a point in my life where my kids are older now.
Yeah.
So I don't have, and earlier on, I was doing a lot of the dad stuff.
Yeah.
And I still obviously do, but my kids are older, and they actually, don't think I'm as cool as I once was.
That happens, right? Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I do have some more time that, but honestly, the faculty role helps. Again, like I said, we actually have dedicated time in our workload for research
Oh, that's good.
and writing. So that's an important piece of it as well. But to be completely honest with you, by most nights, I'll say 4 or 5 nights a week, I get home around between 4 and 5 o'clock, and I come up to my office at home here, and I'm in here till about 8.
Wow.
So I usually write a couple hours
Wow.
in idea, and not necessarily right. And I dictate a lot. That helps.
Yeah.
That really has helped me quite a bit. But I do set aside specific time.
Yeah.
My son is a little bit of a writer himself. He's 16 and writing on stuff, and he has a goal where he actually writes 500 words a day before he does anything else that he wants to do. And so little things like that I think help. And now not all of it's good. So I spend most of my time is editing and stuff like that. But you've got to be diligent in that. And that's the hardest thing, I think, for writers to understand. And the thing I do coach a lot of writers as well. And one of the things that I think is the most difficult thing for them is to let go of something that they love, because you put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and you can keep adding to it. But at some point you've got to be done and you got to stop. And the hardest part for a writer, and why I think there's so many unwritten books and unwritten ideas, is because the author puts down on paper what they ultimately have, and then they have the hard task of now cut out half of it. And they love it too much. They can't part with it,
Yeah.
And that's the hardest piece.
Oh, for sure. But I love the rhythm you have, the discipline. And even you said, hey, it's not all good, but the key is you're doing, and that, I think a lot of times everybody, like you say, trying to make it perfect. No, you're building that discipline of that daily rhythm. And I think that's where a lot of us get hung up on, whether it's writing or any other goal. We just
Exactly.
won't establish this daily routine, even when there's probably times you don't feel like it, but you do it
Well,
anyway.
here's one of the other things I say too, and we'll go back to the foresight analogy is I talk quite a bit about the difference between having foresight and having a dream. And everybody has a dream, but not everybody has foresight. And
Hmm.
I think foresight is better than a dream. And I think we use the wrong language a lot of times. So I ask anybody anywhere, and I'll say, well, what's your dream? What do you want to do? And they always have an answer. I want to get out of debt. I want to finish my novel, write my book, finish my degree, whatever it is, have a happy marriage, whatever. I want my
Yeah.
kids to like me, whatever it is. Everybody's got a dream. But most people will follow that up with what I call is the I can't because clause. I want
Ah,
to get out of debt, but I can't because. I want to finish my novel, but I can't because. And whatever it is. And the issue for me is that just shows that you don't have foresight and that you're limiting yourself to a dream. Whereas foresight is someone who can articulate that dream and articulate how they're going to accomplish it. So it's literally comes down to, I'm going to get out of debt and here's how it's going to happen. I've got to do these steps. And most people just let themselves off the hook too easy by, well, I can't because I don't have the time. Well, you got the same amount of time everybody else does. It's just, these kinds of things. So it does come down to, like you said, the rhythm and the discipline. So, to steal somebody else's phrase, it's you just got to do it, So, I mean, it comes down to that, and
yeah.
don't be afraid to let go.
Hmm. That's great. Great way to wrap up. We've run out of time. It flew by, and it's been a great conversation. Appreciate you sharing so much about yourself, your background, and then the model, and I'm sure there'll be another opportunity to talk again in the future because you're doing a lot of great work out there. I'm sure we'll be seeing some more publications from
I
you, and
hope.
maybe any other books being planned, or
So I've got a couple in the hopper that I'm working on,
a
but
couple,
yeah,
just a couple.
yeah, a few ideas here,
Wow,
and
that's awesome.
some,
Oh.
some
Well,
going.
so we'll link to your website, MatthewKutz.com. Any other good places for people to connect with you? LinkedIn or
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter.
yeah.
Um, Dr. Matt Kutz is my Twitter handle. So I use that a lot. LinkedIn is probably a real good one as well. Um,
Okay,
and then my website.
great. Well, Matt, it's been a lot of fun. Really appreciate you sharing and taking the time to join us today.
Absolutely exciting for me.
Thanks, Matt. Take care.
Thanks you, Jeremy.